We are sitting at the bottom of the gender equity index. I think we're second last out of 150 countries. So I think the reality is that this is not a corporate sector issue. This is not a government issue. This is actually now society's issue, the whole gender debate. And if we break it down into what prevents women from entering the labor force, we have a large labor force and women are, 20% in terms of participation. But the societal and cultural barriers, perhaps, to women having access to education, women having access to jobs, and then women being encouraged to be financially independent, to take on careers, I think that's where the roadblocks are really coming in. So the gender debate is not one that I think can be resolved easily. It is going to be up to us as society members and society at large to recognize, first of all, that it is important to have women participate, not just from their own personal perspective, but from the perspective of the country's economic growth. And that requires, I think, communication at the primary school level, at the secondary school level, working with parents, and then working with children, and then working with girls and women. Because while we do see graduates of our top universities, a fair percentage, almost 40% are actually women, by and large, most don't enter the workforce, which means we're wasting that entire sort of generation or that entire effort that we have spent into educating them. So what are the retention tools that we can do to both retain and also attract women into the labor force? So let's start with one. One is entrepreneurship abilities. So a lot of women, I think, in Pakistan and around like to have the freedom to manage their work-life balance more productively for themselves. But what can we do as companies looking to encourage that? So the access to capital on entrepreneurship, the availability of capital to tech entrepreneurship, to digital entrepreneurship is something that will be very critical towards developing women that are more productive in the entire ecosystem. And I think at InfraZamin, one of our first transactions that we did was actually focused on digital access. We're working on others that will look for financial inclusion of not just women, but also young people into the actual formal economy as opposed to being informal. I think the other things is the questions we have to ask of corporates. And very similar to how IFC does their assessment on projects that we take on, we do very similar assessments at InfraZamin. And gender is certainly up there. So when we are looking at projects to finance, we do ask, how many women are you planning to hire in the new jobs that you're going to create here? How many women do you have represented on the board? And even if that project cannot achieve that initially, we would like to see a roadmap whereby that gender equity can be placed. And I think within that framework, we also have to ask corporations that are established, what's the plan in terms of improving female participation in your workforce? We can continue to argue for quota systems at the board level and so forth, but the reality is, do we have a nursery of women underneath in middle and senior leadership positions that will come forward and be those eventual board members? So it is a plan that is not just about we want to move from 15% to 50%, but how would you actually transition that? And that would mean intakes at every level, whether it's lower management, middle management, senior level management, a grooming mechanism, and the ability of women to stay within those organizations or stay within the workforce, especially when they are having children and dealing with family, will be very crucial. So there are many layers, to this gender debate and issue, but I think it's important that every member of society, whether it is the household level, or whether it is the corporation, or whether it is government, recognize their own role in developing that ecosystem so that women can actually come forward.